Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the council meeting this evening. Before the meeting begins, please note the following housekeeping rules. There is no planned fire drill this afternoon. Should the alarm sound, members of staff will guide you safely out of the building. Please ensure you use a microphone when speaking so you can be heard. Please ensure that you take away any papers with you after the meeting and dispose of securely in the case of any confidential papers. We will now take item 1 on the agenda, which is apologies for absence. At present, I have councillors Graham Marsh, Richard Cunnington, Paul Rickett, Billy Brooks, Ross Jackson and Steve McMillan. Do I have any others, please?
Madam Chairman, Councillor Dave is stuck in a train. It's broken down, so he may or may not be here.
Right, thank you very much. Are there any others? No, thank you. We'll move on to item 2, which is disclosure of interest. Do we have any, please? Councillor Dannett.
Yeah, agenda item number 22. I rent a property opposite the town hall and I own a property 2 doors up.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have any others? Oh, Councillor Brooks, please.
Same item number, Madam Chairman, operate a similar business in the town.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooks. Any more for any more? Okay, we'll move on, thank you. To item 3, election of chairman of the council. I may not leave. Do I have any nominations, please? Councillor Leyland.
Madam Chairman, thank you. And can I thank you for your service to this council over the last year? It's been fantastically done and we will miss you, but we know you're handing over to potentially someone very good as well. It's my great pleasure this evening to propose Councillor Helen Matthews for the role of chairman. Councillor Matthews is a great community advocate, works very hard in the community, has been chairman of the Place Reference Group in Mablethorpe and done much to sustain and help her community. And it's only right that we have her as chairman of the council. So my pleasure, Madam Chairman, to propose Councillor Matthews.
Thank you very much, Councillor Leyland. And do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Benjamin, please.
Thank you. I have great pleasure in seconding Helen because not only has she got the talents that Craig has just outlined, she's also a person of great imagination. I think it takes imagination to fulfil that role.
Thank you very much, Councillor Benjamin. If there are no other nominations, I will move to the vote in support of Councillor Matthews becoming our new chairman. Please show a clear show of hands, councillors. Then that is clearly carried. And I think this is the bit where I have to say something. Have you got the piece of paper?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. First and foremost, Councillor Matthews, congratulations. I really hope you enjoy the job. I should now swap over my chain. The upstanding. Excuse us while we have a wardrobe malfunction. Too much hair. Is that out? Oh, yeah. Now we get to swap places. Thank you. And I found him. I'm looking for Colin Matthews because I need to give you the consort's chain. You'll be thrilled with this, Colin, because on the back it says Chairman's Lady.
Declaration of acceptance of office. I, Helen Matthews, having been elected to the office of Chairman of East Lindsey District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and would duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of East Lindsey District Council. I'd like to move a vote of thanks to the retiring chairman, Councillor Devereux, and the duties carried out during her term of office, which actually have been exceptional in these times and the circumstances we've been under and the venues we've had to go to. So thank you very much, Councillor Devereux. And could somebody please second that motion? Councillor Howard.
Thank you. And I'm congratulating yourself on taking office, Councillor Matthews. I just want to say a word or two about your predecessor now, and say that under the extreme circumstances that you've just mentioned, I think Councillor Devereux did an absolutely fine job. And if I might, can I just say it was an exemplar to us all. I don't see a little copyright against that yet, but I know it's coming. You took on some severe challenges that none of us have previously had to put up with, handle them with panache and always with a smile. And we thank you for your service from this group.
Thank you.
Councillor Makinson-Sanderson.
Thank you. Well, of course, she did start as an independent, so I'm going to congratulate her on rising to high office, even if it wasn't with our group. But well done. It was lovely and it's lovely to have two ladies at the front. It's that's what we should see, because women are quite good at this job and we do get overlooked rather a lot, don't we? But thank you very, very much indeed. I shall miss not seeing your pretty frocks and your nice hats, and thank you for a lovely civic service. It was a really nice afternoon, and the baby bank was delighted with the big box that I took home again after your lovely raffle. So thank you very much indeed, Sarah. You've done a very good job, and I'm sure Helen will be getting lots of tips off you, especially in the old dressing department. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Danny Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd just like to say well done, Sarah. I didn't expect anything less, so I think you did a fantastic job under extreme circumstances, so just well done.
Councillor Fiona Martin.
Thank you. From one previous lady chairman to now somebody else who's joined the ranks as a previous lady chairman, and congratulations, Sarah. I think you had an excellent year. Well done. And Helen, I'm sure you'll follow in Sarah's footsteps and have just as successful a year. So congratulations.
Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and congratulations to you in your election. You'll do a fantastic job, I know, and done with passion and energy. And you're picking up, obviously, from Councillor Devereux, who's also, in retiring, you can be very proud of the year that you've had. You've been a great credit to this council, and each and every one of us in this room wish you well. And it's been very good to work with you. Councillor Matthews, you've got a great year ahead of you. It's going to be exciting, lots of challenges, and I'm sure you'll handle it brilliantly. Thank you.
I'd like to thank you all for the kind words, which mean a lot to me. And thank you for your support. It has been, what do we use all the time? A challenging year, to say the very least. But you've all been awesome. You've been tolerant and patient with me. I've thoroughly enjoyed representing our council in any event that I've done. And being here as your chairman, it is a role I'm going to miss. So I want to thank you all as councillors. I want to thank our amazing officers who have been incredible. And I'd like a special little thank you to Anne, who is second to none. So Anne, show yourself.
And Sarah, we'd like to present to you with a gift as well.
Oh, they're beautiful. Thank you. They are lovely. Thank you all very much.
And we have got another gift as well, which is going to be a beautifully framed photograph from tonight's session outside as a memento of your year.
That's lovely. Thank you.
We can go on to item 6 now, which is, item 5. I can count. Election of the Vice Chair of the Council. Do we have any proposals? Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and may I begin by welcoming you to your place and wishing you all the best in the year that's come. Having worked alongside you on planning policy and committees and so on, I have absolute confidence that you will be a superb ambassador for this council and for all of East Lindsey. Madam Chairman, I would like to move that Councillor Chris Green be elected Vice Chairman of this council to serve until the next annual meeting of the council. It has been my distinct pleasure and privilege to count Chris as a friend and colleague now for 12 years, working together across a number of different organisations. I have seen firsthand what a superb ward councillor and representative he is for Louth St Margaret's, carrying out a programme of ward surgeries and keeping in touch on the ground year in, year out. I've seen him chair meetings, I've seen him represent organisations, and I have every confidence that he will do the job as Vice Chairman of this council superbly and support you, Madam Chairman, in your year as Chairman. And I look for a second. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Thank you. Chairman, I'd like to congratulate you first of all on your position. And regarding to Chris, I needn't say too much because we've had another novel from Councillor Ashton. So I'd like to second Councillor Green for this position.
Thank you. Councillor Makerson-Sanderson.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, it's always been the view of the opposition, in order to serve our residents to best advantage, there should be a council of talents rather than of simple political patronage. And there are many talents on this side of the House, and sadly, these go untapped until, I hope, today. So it's with great pleasure I nominate Councillor Stephen Eyre for Vice Chairman. Stephen, with his sunny personality and ready smile, has extensive chairing experience. Our leader, Craig Leyland, has recognised what an excellent chairman of planning he was, and he's notably forging links with our parishes in an innovative training scheme, which I don't think has been equalled. He's chaired his own parish council for many years, latterly steering them through all the COVID crisis, and he's been an active member of the Drainage Board for years. I've never seen this man lose his temper, and his gentlemanly disposition is much appreciated far and wide. He's supported by his lovely wife, Jill, not me, another Jill, who would make a perfect First Lady, and together they'll make wonderful ambassadors for East Lindsey. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Howard.
Thank you, Chair. I would very much like to be the seconder of that proposition. I've known Councillor Eyre for quite some years, and I've always found him a very able and a very even-minded councillor. And in fact, in whatever work he's doing, I've always found that to be the case. As my colleague said, this is a council of talents, and it's always fallen to me, it would appear, to make the same speech almost every year, that the election of the vice chairman should not be within the gift of the executive or the leader or even the ruling group, but should be taken on merit from the whole of the council. And as such, I think Councillor Eyre has distinguished himself over many, many years in many, many roles, and would be the ideal person to take the role of vice chairman. And so I do formally second that proposal.
Thank you. If we can go to the vote. So it'll be for the first candidate to start off with, Councillor Chris Green. If you could put your hand up if you're in favour. Thank you very much. And if we could have a show of votes, please, for Councillor Stephen Eyre. We've got 28 votes for Councillor Chris Green and 17 votes for Councillor Stephen Eyre. So Councillor Chris Green is elected as the Vice Chair of the Council. If you'd like to come up.
Am I on? I, Christopher Green, having been elected to the office of Vice Chairman of East Lindsey District Council, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of East Lindsey District Council. Item 7 is exempt information. Does anybody want to speak on the exempt information? So we need to go to closed session. Councillor Brooks, was it to talk about? No. Okay, thank you. I know what you want to talk about. Thank you. Sorry, is it to say that you're going to leave early? All right, thank you very much. So there's nothing in exempt information that's going to be talked about. If we go on to item 8,
which is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of March 2022. Any questions?
Can I propose we accept the minutes, Chairman? Thank you.
Any seconders? Thank you. And could we have a show of hands, please, for the minutes? That's carried. Item 9 is action sheets.
That's for me, Chair, just to confirm that all those actions have now been completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 10 is communications from the Chairman, Chief Executive. Chair. Apologies, Councillor Hall.
Okay, sorry, just on the action sheets, you went past a little bit quick for me. Sorry, I've got a question here. On page 35, on the £150 rebate, I know this is an update, but it may be worth asking, is this going, it's disappeared. Well, basically, we're hearing an awful lot of concern from the public. Is this because the people need money, or?
Sorry, which page are you referring to?
Page 35. 34, sorry.
This is just to confirm the actions, not to question and vote. Do forgive me. Going back to item 8, I should have also mentioned the exempt minutes of the extraordinary meeting, council meeting held on the 30th of March 2022. Councillor Leyland. Thank you. Any seconder, please? Councillor Ashton. All those in favour? Item 10, communications from the Chairman and Chief Executive. We have no update. We're going to item 11, questions by the public. Good evening, Mr. Philip Millward. Could you give us your question, please? Thank you.
Good evening. May I please ask what procedures do you include for anyone hiring and buying a beach hut? With so much money being invested by the council, companies and private individuals on the coast, it seems a great loss that this good work is being undermined by allowing unkept huts to remain. If you look at the huts next to Chapel North Sea Observatory, you can see what can be achieved with little or no cost to the council by either making it compulsory to keep the huts painted or to a high standard, or charging a higher rent in fees, etc.
Thank you. Councillor Fry to respond.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Millard. I thank you very much for your question. In the significant majority of cases, council does not let beach huts directly. Rather, it grants an annual ground licence upon which lessees construct their own private chalets.
Now, I do really share Mr. Millard's concerns about the appearance of some of those constructed upon council land, and it is why I've asked officers to schedule a review of our site licences at my portfolio meeting a few weeks ago. In addition, I ask that independent valuation advice be sought for the small number of plots we have vacant as a precursor to reviewing our operating model so far as our licence may allow. Where shallows are particularly unkempt or subject to vandalism, we contact licensees to remind them of their obligations under their licence, and I will continue to work with officers to explore how we may be able to resource a more intensive management approach in respect of the privately owned chalets on council land. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. And thank you, Mr. Millward, for your question.
Thank you. If I may, I have a subsidiary question to follow that up, if I may, if that's possible.
Yes, that's fine.
Thank you. After reminding licensees of their contractual obligations, what steps are taken to enforce those not responding? And does the contract include both cosmetic and structural regular maintenance? Because beach huts are capable of generating high revenues for the council. Once, if you get them to a standard, supply and demand will take over, and then you can start asking for prices that are being asked around the rest of the country. Thank you for allowing me to ask my question.
You're welcome. Councillor Fry.
Sorry, I thought that was on. I apologise. Thank you very much, Mr. Millard. Well, the lease requires the owners of the chalets to maintain them in good order. And we do, in fact, chase people up who have not done that. And as I've indicated in the answer that I've given, we can do that quite aggressively. And I think that as a function of the review that we're carrying forward, we will indeed do exactly that. They are required to keep them in good order. And personally, it's a matter of considerable concern to me personally, and I fully understand as the Executive Board Member for Finance, the part that these beach chalets can play in our revenue generation. And I'm absolutely aware that things are moving, changing. I'm aware, for instance, that a beach chalet was recently sold for £37,000. Clearly, the market will support a greater degree of income and charge levied than we currently do. But as you rightly say, we do need to make sure that they are all in good order and to be sure that they present a picture which is appropriate to the sort of prices we might want to charge in the future. And I can assure you that the review will do exactly that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fry. Going to item 12, which is the leaders' report. If I hand over to you, Councillor Leland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Part of the function of tonight's meeting is for me to explain the responsibilities of the Executive Board. It will remain the same. So going through the posts, Councillor Marsh will be Deputy Leader of the Council and Portfolio Holder for Partnerships. Councillor Tom Ashton will be Portfolio Holder for Planning. Councillor Martin Foster will be Operational Portfolio Holder. Councillor Richard Fry, I beg your pardon, Portfolio Holder for Finance. Councillor William Gray, Portfolio Holder for Communities and Better Ageing. And myself as a leader, obviously. Going on to the, Councillor Grist, Inland Economy, and Councillor Kirk, Coastal Economy. I do beg your pardon. So it's 2 pages stuck together. After a stroke, I've changed the council. Yes, so look forward to the next year of working with my colleagues, all of them, of course. And we now move on to my leadership report. Mr. Chairman, Madam Chairman, I usually give a verbal update on the nuclear waste services meetings that we've had. We had one on Tuesday where Michelle Sachs and myself attended. And the purpose of that meeting was to finalise the composition and the makeup of the community partnership, as well as mechanisms for distributing the community funding that comes with this process. As the meeting was only on Tuesday, unfortunately, I haven't had time to write up the notes with the officer, but suffice to say the community partnership structure will be made public, but the process of delivering and understanding how the financial contributions will be made is going to be part of a working group to formalise that. It is critical that we get that right. I've had a group leaders meeting recently where a number of concerns were expressed about the process, and I will be taking those back to the working group of nuclear waste services. Always happy to update any changes and progress on that. I will obviously update full council. Moving on to the report, I'm very pleased. I was very pleased to attend the Partnership Staff Awards, and it's very important to note that the prizes and awards, in effect, were nominated by council workers and their colleagues. So it was a real in-depth understanding of how this council works and an understanding of which officers have worked really hard above and beyond the call of duty across East Lindsey and the other two authorities of our partnership. And as I say, I was very pleased to attend that. There were over 100 staff tuned in via Zoom, with a further 300 views on Facebook, and there were over 160 nominations submitted for the 8 special category awards, which covered recognition of collaboration and partnership working, innovation, personal development, and amongst other areas. The event also recognised the service of staff across the partnership, as I've said, and also a number of qualifications that our staff and officers have achieved over the last 12 months. And while I recognise that this won't capture all the good work that all our officers do, I think it's very good to showcase and enable an award ceremony to recognise those colleagues, recognised by their colleagues within the organisations. I'm very pleased to attend that. The Household Supports Fund, the Prosperous Communities team have delivered Household Supports Fund from December to March in the Lgc, with over 5,000 grants distributed through a network of community partners to help households in financial hardship, totaling over £600,000. The support for struggling households in East Lindsey has been particularly important. And this was also delivered as a South and East Lincolnshire partnership project, which delivered over £1 million of support across the sub-region. Important work, and I know that the challenges that our residents face will increase as the cost of living crisis is impacted. Climate change strategy, very pleased to see that following consideration by all 3 cabinets, the Executive Board and South East Lincolnshire Council's partnership has approved a new climate change strategy for the sub-region covering East Lindsey, Boston and South Holland. The document is the next step in the climate change aspirations of the 3 councils, moving beyond the confines of our own carbon footprint and emissions to look at the wider issues and opportunities that climate change presents for our local communities. It is not just about driving down carbon emissions across the sub-region, but also about how we ensure a more sustainable future. And the councils cannot deliver this strategy in isolation. Under the new South and East Lincolnshire Action Climate Network will be established to bring together all relevant stakeholders and ensure delivery across all levels as we collectively work to a net zero ambition. Obviously, the Ukrainian crisis is in the news, and our officers have been working very hard to support this initiative. Officers from the Housing Standards team are leading on the Council's response to the Homes for Ukraine scheme that has been established by the Home Office in relation to the conflict in Ukraine. Residents across the UK have been asked to consider whether they can temporarily accommodate Ukrainians who are fleeing their country due to the conflict, excuse me, to help facilitate the Council's response to the crisis in Ukraine. Working together with Boston Borough Council and South Holland District Council, a South East Lincolnshire Council's Partnership Task Group has been established involving officers from across the partnership, drawing on expertise in housing, homelessness, voluntary and community sector liaison, finance, communication and wellbeing services. The group is supporting delivery on the ground and provides an interface with the County Council, who have set up a team to coordinate the county-wide response for this work, and is engaging with partner organisations to carry out the specific functions required to accommodate Ukrainian guests with the hosts that have come forward to assist. As part of this scheme, district councils are conducting accommodation inspections to ensure the safety of the host properties, collating and forwarding on DBS checks that the hosts are being asked to provide, and processing payments that are being offered to both the guests and hosts as part of this scheme. As part of our work, the Council's Housing Standards officers are working closely with colleagues from the Wellbeing Service and PSPS in order to facilitate the payments to the guests and hosts in a timely manner. Due to the urgent nature of the situation, officers are prioritising the accommodation inspection work with their daily duties to ensure that there are no delays in process. Many guests have now arrived and their hosts with their hosts, which has in turn triggered the payment process to be made. And I know many communities are supporting this initiative, and I know many of you as councillors will be working in your local communities to help with this. Certainly I know in Woodall Spa, a community group has been formed and has its own WhatsApp group, which is really helping to coordinate and make sure that when we do host Ukrainian families, they are as welcome as they can be. And I have to say, I was at a meeting last week of this group, and they were fortunate to bring along a lady who had escaped the war, a Ukrainian lady, an older lady, but a retired professional person, couldn't speak English, but there was a translator there. And she was relaying to us the experiences that she had. She still has family there. And of course, it was very distressing and upsetting. And she was in tears. And I have to say, a number of the group that were attending couldn't believe what was happening on the ground. And it is truly, truly tragic, the human circumstances that these people are fleeing from. So all that we can do to help, we will do, recognising that this is on top of the work that our councillors are doing. And I do appreciate all the efforts that are being made by community groups and, as I say, councillors in helping with this. Last item, the prestigious Lgc Awards. The South and East Lincolnshire Councils Partnership have been shortlisted for this year's prestigious Lgc Awards. The partnership is shortlisted for the Public Partnership Award, where the winner will be announced at the award ceremony in July at the Grosvenor House Hotel in London. And our Chief Exec, obviously very pleased that we've been shortlisted for the award, as am I. And this year saw a record number of entries in that category. So to be shortlisted, we are really, really pleased. And of course, that's a good reflection on all the work that's been done by this council and other councils and by officers and councillors. That's my report, Chairman, and I'm quite happy to take questions. Thank you.
Councillor Tony Howard.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points very quickly. Very interested to hear what was being said about the nuclear development situation. I think the issue of how the funding that is coming down the line for that project is a very important one, because wherever there's money involved, then there's always lots of questions about how adequately and fairly it is actually distributed. And I think there are a lot of ways in which this could be done. And I think that there needs to be a lot of work put into getting a set of rules and regulations put in place to make sure that this is money that comes to the community for things that the community generally wants, not what the community is being told that it wants. So I think it's important that the ultimate governance does put trust in the communities involved. With regard to the Ukrainian situation, I quite agree with the comments that you made about the situation over there. It seems almost unbelievable that Europe can be in a situation whereby there is a full-scale war going on and a superpower has turned on a smaller nation. It is unbelievable. My thoughts and my group's thoughts, and I think everybody from across East Lindsey are sympathetic to the hostile situation and the terrible things that are happening on the ground. But I just want to come to one small point in the actual report where it says that officers are prioritising the accommodation inspection work. Can I just say that I'm totally with that. I understand why you would put that in the report, but just to say that the work that they do normally is no less important, and I don't want there to be things falling behind that are also equally as important in that area. And finally, something that's not here, and strangely enough, I believe is reported to us in an embargoed email, which seems very strange because the word is out, it's in the papers, it's on Facebook, it's everywhere. And that is just a congratulation, I'm sure these fitted once, it's just to congratulate Martin Foster and his team, the neighbourhoods team, in retaining the blue flags yet again. How that is immensely important to this area. And, you know, at a time when we're trying to encourage even more people to come down and enjoy our beaches, I think it's worth saying, well done to the team once again for ensuring that we have those blue flags. Thank you.
Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Craig, for your report, but unusually for me, I wish to just raise a bit of disappointment in that. We started this meeting congratulating Councillor Devereux for the excellent work that we've seen happen, and we welcomed Councillor Matthews into her position as chair. However, when I read through the portfolios, here we are in 2022 with every position being taken by a male. It kind of makes me wonder, do you not think that there are people good enough?
Thank you. Councillor Mossop.
Yes, good evening, Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment. Well, it's always interesting to hear that previous comment, but it's always useful to be reminded of the Cabinet's responsibilities, and which we do accept, Leader, that they are in your gift. But I read the responsibilities for some of the Cabinet members, and I'm actually looking at the one for Councillor William Gray, who's portfolio holder for communities and better ageing. And I really feel that at the top of his priority list should be the relationship with housing providers external to this council, because we don't obviously hold any housing stock. I really feel particularly the relationship with platform housing is absolutely paramount. And I think there are many people in this room who've probably had issues of a housing nature that are pertinent to that, and I think it's something that we really need to hammer home to these providers that are in our district, whether it be through our scrutiny process or through the portfolio holder. I hope that we can get a joint relationship working so that we can get through some of the problems that are in our particular wards. And then the other thing I was going to mention in terms of the responsibilities for Councillor Foster is at the top of his list. I really hope that he will prioritise the consultation with the public about the new twin bin recycling system. The Environment Bill now has been passed. It is now obligatory for us to collect glass. I've obviously spoken in the past in council, and it's been picked up by a member of the public who I don't think is probably in my ward, but has written to me recently just asking me about the recycling system and when the public are going to be informed about this and when it's going to happen. So I think, again, it's something that we need to see right at the top of the list to get this operation done, which was promised for the autumn. We're nearly into summer now. We need to be seeing what's happening on the ground with consultations with the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Horton.
Thank you, Chair, and many congratulations, and I hope you have an enjoyable year. Just to take on what my colleague here, Councillor Moppus, has said to Councillor Gray, platform housing seemed to be very complacent. I've had a number of complaints and even only one this week. This particular example is where a resident is very concerned and worried about a housing with a son and wants separating so that the son can go his way and whatever, was promised a call or a visit to help fill in the housing form by platform 3 weeks ago, still waiting. Just by the by, I did speak to Safeguarding in Lincoln, and they said we will have somebody around this week to sort it out. I think platform need a shake-up. They seem so complacent in what they do. Just going on to the chairman's report, as I spoke to our chairman on a short chat on Monday, partnership staff awards are very good. They can really lift and make people feel important. But equally so, they can be so demoralising for others. We are a team. And I think to pick out individuals who have, how do you say he's better than her or her's better than he? It's a teamwork. I don't think you can compare the three authorities, Boston, South Holland and East Lindsey. We all have our own little quirks. We all have our own problems. I know East Lindsey, for example, they've taken on the Boston housing problems. It must be very difficult to highlight and signify somebody's done a better job than others. I would rather see some kind of celebration for everybody, not just the few, so that the staff who didn't get awarded, didn't get recognised, don't feel demoralised.
Thank you. Councillor Hall.
Thank you. On the leader's report, Councillor Leyland mentions the Household Support Fund. What percentage of the available funds was spent? What was missed out? 6 million might seem an awful lot, but who didn't know about the fund? Who self-excluded because they thought that others were worse off, etc.?
Thank you. Councillor Parkin.
Thank you, Chairman. Congratulations on your role. I hope it's an enjoyable year for you. Councillor Leyland, thanks ever so much for the update on the Ukrainian refugee situation. And obviously, when we're in at this point in time, those material and those concrete and immediate needs will be paramount and prioritised. However, obviously, these people have been through, as you alluded in your speech, to a great amount of trauma. And I'm interested into what discussions are being had about preparing hosts how to fulfil their roles to these refugees in a trauma-informed way. What support is there for both the refugees themselves in terms of mental health supporting capacity, whether that be through statutory services or through community support, just so that we can have some assurance that, as well as those immediate needs that are so vital, we're also looking to those longer term needs that if we can get that bit right, then the longer term future for these people will be much more secure, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very glad to see the work being done with. I'm very pleased to see the work that's being done with Ukrainian refugees. I'm very pleased to see the change of attitude to this war than those who were fleeing, our allies in fleeing from Iraq and previously from the war in Syria. But my actual substantive point here is on the climate change strategy. I'm very pleased to see that this has come forward, and I wondered if the approved version of this climate change strategy has been circulated or is available for us all to get into the nitty-gritty of. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Makeson-Saunders.
Thank you. Thank you for your report, Councillor Leyland. I hope it's an exemplar of a year for you and your team. The Household Support Fund has been a lifeline for so many people, and I really want to assure everybody in this council chamber that deprivation is not limited just to the coast. I'm probably one of the few councillors that was heavily involved in this scheme, and I sat for hours filling in forms with residents across all age groups, to tell you the truth. And I know how desperate some people are without the onslaught of the autumn months coming and having to choose between eating or putting on the heating. There are a lot of people who are really, really struggling already. Sadly, they're in my hometown. Roxanne Warwick tells me that the next tranche of funding will be directed to souls receiving pension credit. And whilst I do grasp why funds should be targeted, I think we need to be extremely concerned about the people who just drop short of being able to claim that. I'm sure there are going to be an awful lot of them. The food banks are really busy already, and we're running out of tins and food in some of them. So, you know, the more help that we can give them, the better. Ukrainian refugee support, I'm really pleased to see this. Yesterday I sent a pram and a whole load of baby things over to Horncastle, for a 6-month-old little boy. But I'm sad to say that nobody from any of these groups has been in touch with us as a voluntary group. We have got Moses baskets to cobble dogs with, and I can put together kits for little babies up to 2 years old. And if somebody would like to get in touch with me from this group, because I have no idea who is on this group, I'd be quite happy to provide as much or as little as anybody needs, and we have everything from A to Z. So we'd like to be of use if we can be. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and congratulations on your appointment. I'd just like to thank Councillor Leyland for the report and congratulate Rob and his whole team on getting shortlisted for the public award. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions. Councillor Leyland.
Now I've just got to read my own handwriting. I could have been a doctor. Sorry, Councillor Mannion, that's not a slight on your handwriting at all. we started the day so well. Councillor Howard, I fully take your point about the funding process and how that lands, and that's one of the reasons why the decision was delayed to take it to a more detailed discussion. Obviously, the local representation on that working group, myself and our officers, is very helpful in that respect, because we've had experience with dealing with the Towns Fund and all the other funds that have been distributed along the coast. So we felt it needed a wider discussion to really make sure that it dealt with the points that you raised, and that's transparency, the need, and it has to be the local connection and the local need to progress that. So your point's well made. In respect to the Ukrainian process, you make a fair point. Our officers are busy with dealing our own with the challenges that we have with our own homeless and home quality inspections and all that goes with that. I'm assured that it's not impacting on that, and it's trying to be tied up with the process. As officers are visiting areas, they'll do a Ukraine inspection without going out of the way specifically to do that. So, but my understanding is that it's being coped with very well. And I've got to say, didn't say earlier, but the numbers of host volunteers in East Lindsey, it shows an incredible generosity of spirit in this district. You know, residents are really coming forward to support this. And I'm quite pleased to say that the timeliness of the inspections has been well received. So that's very good. But your point is well made. In respect of beaches, yes, it was embargoed and it is an open secret. And it is fantastic that we have that quality mark for our beaches, given the attraction of elsewhere overseas. I think it's wonderful that we have a fantastic coastline that is worth visiting and you know, accommodating people who visit here and visit for the day or week or whatever. So we need those beaches to the highest quality. And again, I would join you in congratulating Councillor Foster and his team on delivering that and making sure that it sustains itself. Councillor Arnold, I would say in respect of the makeup of the executive board, we have in the past had Councillor Harrison, Councillor Bowkett. There's not an issue about having women on the executive board. It's just this moment in time, it's all male. But don't see that as an exclusion to talented women. It is not. We will have our eyes open to the point you make, but there's certainly no intention to discriminate, I can assure you. Did you make another point? I can't remember. Yeah, that's fine. That's all right. That's all right. That's very good of you. Thank you. Councillor Mossop, in terms of platform housing, Councillor Gray deals with platform on a daily basis, I dare say, because there are lots of issues that come forward. And I spoke to Councillor Martin earlier on today about scrutiny topics, and platform housing is obviously going to be one of those. And I think it is the work of scrutiny to get external bodies like Platform in to be held accountable. We all know the issues, we all know the problems, and we all have issues in our own wards about the quality and the provision that they make, and also dealing with issues that are raised by their tenants. It's not good, and it's something we will be pursuing. And Councillor Bowkett, previous portfolio holder, was, I was going to say very aggressive in pursuing it, but you were. And the same is going forward, Councillor Gray. that work continues, and it also continues across the partnership of Lincolnshire County Council as well, because there's concerns raised at every level about this. So your points are well made, but and understood. Waste services. You're right about the environmental bill. It does have implications for us. Councillor Martin is involved in the rollout of the twin screening for the new cardboard and paper collection. That's undergoing at the moment, and there will be full briefings for members. Certainly, it's an executive board decision that should happen, and that also includes glass collection from the curbside. So, if you want to have a chat with Councillor Martin after the meeting to fully update you on that, I'm sure he'll provide you with the information that's needed. Sorry, I beg your pardon, Councillor Foster. Councillor Martin, Councillor Foster, right, got it. It's not as if I hadn't had time to learn this, have I? Yeah, Councillor Foster will happily update you, I'm sure. Where are we? We got up to Councillor Horton, platform housing. Again, Councillor Gray is on it. In respect to the staff awards, we do have a very dedicated staff, and they've been tested and pushed and cajoled to deal with all the challenges that we've had over this last 2 years in terms of COVID, dealing with all the grants that have happened, the wellbeing side of things. And I have nothing but praise in the executive board, and I'm sure all the councillors will agree, we have nothing but praise for all officers. But I do feel that an awards ceremony for picking out those officers that have gone above and beyond the call of duty is quite appropriate. It shouldn't be demoralising. It should be something to aspire and aim for. And I think I'm quite happy to see those in place continuing. But no one's lost out. It's a recognition of all the good work that the council does. But I'm afraid I don't agree with you on that. Councillor Hall, Household Support Fund. I will happily get those details for you. Haven't got them to hand, but I'm sure our officers will provide you with that information. Councillor Parkin, in respect of the Ukrainian needs of our guests coming into the country, into the district, Lincolnshire County Council, if you remember, we had the Lincolnshire Outbreak Engagement Board, which dealt with the COVID pandemic. Elements of that structure are still in place to deal with the challenges that the Ukrainian refugees bring. And we are well aware of the potential of having to deal with traumatized adults and probably more worryingly traumatized children. And that's something that we are working very closely with districts. All the districts are engaged in this process with our county colleagues to make sure that is delivered as best as it can be. And it's also a responsibility as well to let those host families know that actually they're going to be hearing things that are going to be very challenging. And picking up on Councillor Howard's point, this hasn't happened on continental Europe for a good 75 years. So it's new to us again. But your point's well made, and that there are structures in place to hopefully deal with that issue. Councillor Smith, climate change strategy. Happy to share the document that was discussed at board and across the three councils. I'll ask Chief Executive to make sure that happens. Councillor Maxton Sanders, you're absolutely right about deprivation. It's not just along the coast. I despair sometimes when I see the maps showing deprivation and the various elements of deprivation, child health, all that goes with it. There is a definite east-west split, and it's our job to make sure that the issues that we face are dealt with to change. It's no use dealing with the symptoms. We've really got to get to the core of the skills issues, the education issues, the health issues, and we can't do that on our own. The partnership is creating its own momentum in respect of dealing with the NHS and our wider partners. And of course, we work with Lincolnshire County Council and NHS and the CCG to make sure that we deal with those issues. But it's such a tight weave to unravel to get to the bottom of how we cope with it. And so your point's well made about where the deprivation is. And in respect of the household support grants, I will get more information on about where the next spread of need is going to be met by the grants. We'll make sure that there's a briefing through the members' point brief about the next tranche of it, as it were. And again, fully appreciate the work that local councillors do in respect of the Ukrainian help and support. we are compiling a list across the three councils of organisations that can offer support and advice, and also answer questions that you just asked about where do you go to donate. There is a push from councils that actually there's a move away from material donations to money donations. It's easier to handle, and it can be sent to locations where items can be bought that are on the ground needed. But we'll happily share that when it's created. And Councillor Brooks, can I acknowledge your appreciation of our office's efforts in dealing that award? It's welcome. Thank you. I think I've covered that, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Going to item 13, which is the South and East Lincolnshire Council's Partnership Performance Framework. Are you happy to introduce Councillor Leyland, and are we going to debate? And then could you sum up? And this is just for noting.
This is just for noting, but I think it's quite an important thing to note, given that the partnership has been in existence for a relatively short time. There's lots of background things that are happening across Lincolnshire and across the country in terms of Devo deals and the Levelling Up Fund. And I think one of the key things to note about this paper is that in terms of our corporate strategy, we want to align to those key elements of the 12 pillars of the Levelling Up agenda. So it's health, skills, making a better place. And while we have a strategic partnership ambition, we also have local ambition. It's there for noting. I think the report is actually quite interesting to read in terms of the issues we want to deal with. And I think one helpful element of the Levelling Up agenda is that we are going to be effectively marked on our progress. And I think that's very helpful. So happy to take questions, but it is there for noting. You'll have seen some of the papers here before through council, but it's just here as a marker to say this is where we're at this point in time. And happy to take questions, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very interested in the way you've introduced this, Leader, because I looked at the strategic ambition document, and I thought there are lots of places where it says more detail to follow. I accept it's work in progress. But again, I thought some of the work there that has been done, there were still some shortcomings in what is actually in there. And as I say, I do accept that it's a work in progress, and it's where we are so far. And I stress, I acknowledge that. But for instance, I'll just give you an example on the where you're talking about leisure. We've been talking about deprivation only in the last few moments, and we've always said that with our leisure offer, leisure and health, we have difficulty in ensuring that those who are most in need of our services to improve their level of health and their life because of that are always difficult to get to. And yet everything that's in the document so far is only about measuring numbers. It's not about how do we actually get out and get to those people who are most in need of being brought in for health purposes rather than for their own leisure, lifestyle, entertainment attitudes. So as I say, there seems to be an emphasis on numbers, not on the quality or on how we get out there to reach things. And I would like to see a little bit of a change in that. And again, with where there's talk about issues on planning, again, a lot of emphasis on numbers, getting planning applications through, and the numbers meeting up with the national figures that are required. But again, a lack of emphasis on the quality of what we do. It all seems to be quantity, 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 and that could be, a road to disaster, because especially with the climate change agenda, we don't just want to be bunging up what we've been bunging up for the last 20, 40, 50 years. And building up problems for ourselves when the fuels that are installed in those properties go out not only of fashion but go out of existence. So we could continue to build up problems that we already acknowledge that we've got. There's no point in us continuing to do that. So I say the quality's been missed, the numbers are there, but again, there's no emphasis on the quality. And I could go on, but I think that's just a couple of examples that make the point I'm trying to. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Makinson Saunders.
We're going to be marked against the 12 pillars of levelling up, and that does concern me. Are we to be marked as a triumvirate? Are we to be marked as individual councils so that we can see where the gaps are? And I think there's some bits in there that I can see that are difficult to balance. And I'm also really concerned when you say it's very good to be having these scoring things. Are we just going to be scored against rural areas, urban areas, or metropolitan areas, or is it all in one big, wound up thing altogether? Because I do think in a rural area, it's a lot more difficult to provide services, and that should be taken into account. If you're in the centre of London, you've got other challenges, I realise, but it's probably cheaper to provide services. So I'm a bit concerned about your enthusiasm for the 12 pillars, and I'd like a bit more information, please.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I read this with interest. Historically, you have given the council assurances that during the process of the rolling out of the Triple Alliance, that we would not see changes of contract for staff in any sort of negative way, and that staff would be levelled up. I just wondered if you could comment on whether or not there is any change of contract for East Lindsey staff, particularly with regards to working from home. Thank you.
Councillor Parkin.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to concur with what Councillor Howard said, particularly over the leisure and culture KPIs. I think we're in danger of only valuing what we can measure in terms of something that we can put a definite number on, rather than trying to measure what's truly of value. And I think it's really important that we remember those are the things that are harder to catch, but are the real essence of the services that we're funding. And I'm not sure that these KPIs always hit that mark. And I'd just like to remind councillors that Magnavita are trying really hard to capture that information. And I think while our KPIs are a little bit shaky at the moment, I would like to draw the council's agenda to the quarterly report that Magnavita are producing. And at the moment it's appearing in the members' point brief, but we've got plans to modify that somewhat. But do please look at that, because as I say, those KPIs, they're not even, I couldn't even say the half the story. They're not even scratching the surface, I'm afraid. So it will be good to see if these can evolve and change over time to really reflect what it is that we are trying to do in East Lindsey with those services.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you very much. Very briefly, Madam Chairman, to welcome the report and indeed endorse all of its content. Just to pick up on Councillor Howard referring to planning and KPIs. In terms of our own KPIs on planning performance, I can reassure you, Councillor Howard, that these are actually being tweaked this year to properly reflect once again the negotiation that goes on between planning officers and applicants when it comes to extensions of time, appreciating that this is a regular part of the planning process. And once that's taken into account, I'm sure that those figures will once again confirm that we are one of the best performing planning authorities in the country. Just to further endorse the one team approach from the perspective of my own portfolio in respect of building control, which has long been something of a Cinderella service. And with issues of recruitment and retention, and I'm delighted with the work that's being achieved between all three portfolio holders with this responsibility across the partnership, with a new joint head of building control being appointed and in post to coordinate those efforts. So there's lots to look forward to in here, and long may we continue. Thank you.
Councillor Leonard, sorry.
Yes, I'm not the leader yet. Yeah, I mean, with these sort of reports, we're always very good at getting the little carpet out and brushing everything underneath, and everything is always exemplar. But perhaps we could ask, what isn't working well with this partnership? Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? No. Councillor Leyland.
So I'm just writing down a flippant response. No, here we go. So you complimented me a few weeks ago that I wasn't flippant in council, so be careful what you wish for. Councillor Howard, this is work in progress, and it's a marker of where we are. It doesn't mean that we're not going to delve into the quality of what's being put out there. We have significant ambitions, and of course we've got to remember we're all sovereign councils. We each have our own ambitions about what we want to see going forward and press forward, but we do have commonality with our partners. Deprivation, flood defence, skills issues, those are all things that we can work on collectively. Now I recognise, and it's probably going to answer some of the questions of other colleagues, is we are putting down a marker about performance measures for 2022-23. We're also putting down a marker of how those are going to be reported back to the councils and to the relative scrutiny groups that are being put together, and the joint scrutiny group. So this will be accountable to the partnership and to the various the three partners in the partnership. So I think we've got to give it some legs to work to delivery. And I think dealing with the issues that you raise about leisure and health, our partners MV are a key part in the delivery of that. They get out into our communities. Councillor Marsh has secured further funding for another initiative that will make a difference to people's lives, and it's that engagement. And I take your point entirely about difficult to reach members of our population that are, never thought that they would be wanting to be part of something like this. And it's our job to make sure that we outreach to them, to make sure that they take a hand through the door to make it happen. So your point's well made, and Councillor Marsh, with our MV colleagues, very much aware of that challenge of making sure we get to some of those people that wouldn't not necessarily avail themselves of these things that we're doing. In respect of planning, Councillor Ashton has responded. Planning is a moving feast, and it's either all guns to the deck or it's incredibly quiet. And actually, post-COVID, I think we've been very, very busy. So there are challenges there, which I know Councillor Ashton will be meeting. Councillor Maxton-Sanders, the local ambition is important in this. You're absolutely right. Delivering services in rural areas is far more challenging. We're 700 square miles. A few years back, I was happened to be a chair of the post-16 education review, and I picked up an education commissioner from Boston Station, and he said, "Well, our meeting's in Grantham." I said, "Well, yes, I don't know quite why you caught the train to Boston." So I drove him to Grantham, and he couldn't believe it was nearly a 2-hour drive with traffic to the far end of the county, same county. And, through all the spheres of endeavour that we have, whether it's waste collection, whether it's our officers getting in their cars to go and visit, planning applications or whatever, that is a theme that cuts across all the work that this council does. Councillor Smith, in respect of staffing, the contracts that you're aware of is what we've done in terms of the senior management team being part of this. There is work ongoing to understand how we incorporate, as this partnership develops, other members of staff into this. I'm quite happy to brief you after the meeting or with the Chief Exec about how that impacts and how that will work. We do work closely with our union representatives, and that helps guide the way to make this as seamless as possible and understanding as possible for the concerns of staff. Councillor Parkin, your points are very well made. We do work in partnership with MV, and we know that they do an awful lot in delivering on the cultural and leisure side of things. And of course, we have some very good officers dealing with the detail and the analysis of the challenges we face in terms of deprivation. And that information is key to guide where we direct our services and how we direct them. I think that was it, Chairman. I can't think I've missed anyone off, but happy to respond after the meeting if anyone has any other questions. Thank you.
Councillor Leonard.
Sorry, it's just my final parting shot of what everything that's good, what isn't good and what isn't working. Thank you.
I do beg your pardon, I ran out of paper. There are some cultural challenges across the organisations, no doubt about it. But I have to say, between the officers involved and the councillors involved, we're working very hard to smooth those out. And it's inevitable when 3 organisations join, that's going to be the case. I can't think of anything that is not working well. It's where those challenges arise, we make sure that we work at them to find a solution that all 3 partners can support. And don't forget, this is very early days in this partnership. You know, we've run to get here. Now we need to consolidate what we're doing. And that's the purpose of this paper, to be honest with you, is understanding where we're at. So is anything specifically not working? I can't say it isn't, because it's work in progress. There's always challenges. Not without challenge. It's one of my phrases. Well, no. Look, there's no copyright on these phrases. You can use them at will. It's not a problem. It's quite a compliment, actually. So yes, it's work in progress, and it will be, as more and more comes into the partnership, and we face more external challenges that we have to deal with. That actually binds the partnership really well, is dealing with the things that we know we all share as challenges. Thank you, Chairman.
This paper was just for noting, and I'm now going to take item 15 on the agenda. We're taking 15. We're taking 15 ahead of 14. And it's the programme of council meetings for 2022-23. Councillor Leyland.
Chair, thank you for that. And I think the reason it's probably helpful to explain why we're dealing with one paper before the other. In respect of the programme for council meetings, this takes account of the timing change for planning policy. So we'll deal with that first, that's correct, isn't it? And then we'll go to the actual makeup of the committees. So the papers before you, the recommendations are to approve the full council meetings and its committees meetings for the municipal year 22-23 as set out in Agenda A. And note the programme of Executive Board, executive briefings, Lincolnshire Police and Crime Panel meetings and Reserve Members' Day as set out in Appendix A, and confirms the delegated authority to the Chief Executive in consultation with the relevant chairman to cancel a meeting where there is no substantive business and an agenda has not yet been published, or amend the programme of meetings where this will assist the decision-making body to discharge its responsibilities more effectively and an agenda has not yet been published. And so basically, Mr. Chairman, we're taking this first because there is a change to the timing of the planning policy meeting. The paper's before you, Chairman, and happy to take questions.
Councillor Howard.
Thank you. I'm glad that Councillor Leyland has highlighted the change of timing for the planning policy, because this came as a bit of a bolt out of the blue as a member of the Planning Policy Committee. I would have expected that the chair would have consulted with the membership of the committee to see if that in fact was what was required, not to find it in paragraph 1.3 bullet point number 3, hidden within a document here. There has been no consultation. It does not fit with other council work that I do, for instance. Thursday evenings is one of the nights of the week that has always, it would appear, got some sort of community involvement engaged to it. I can only see there being one beneficiary out of that, and that is the chairman himself. And I believe that's the reason that this has been done. And as I say, it's certainly not been a matter of consultation. As such, I would formally move that the timing of that meeting is not altered and it reverts to its pre-COVID timing of 2 p.m. That's I officially move that. Thank you. Oh, sorry, before I actually finish, I also want to raise a question, if I might, with regarding to the date of the AGM in 2023. With it being an election year, and I apologise for not having had the chance to check this in the Constitution, but I thought that the actual AGM had to be within a certain number of days of the actual election, and I thought the AGM date, as per the calendar, falls outside of this period, and I would just like that confirming whether that date is correct or not. Thank you.
Can you confirm, please, Mark?
Chairman, yes, I'm sure John will correct me if I'm wrong, but it falls within about 2 weeks of the proposed date of the AGM falls within about 2 weeks of the elections in 2023, and I'm quite certain does fit within the statutory timetable.
It's 20 days. It's the 4th is the election date, and the 24th is the proposed AGM, and that's why I've got the question.
Councillor Howard, can you just confirm what you've moved, please? And have we got a seconder?
Sorry, Chairman, just to add to my initial, I did neglect to mention that the Audit and Governance meeting is listed as a 10 o'clock start. It should be 10:15. So if I can make that amendment to the paper. Also, the paper needs to be seconded before we go into debate. So, thank you.
I just want to confer with Rob. So Councillor Mason-Sands, you've seconded the motion. Okay, and so we debate it now.
Sorry, just to clarify, my point, Chairman, is that I proposed the paper actually hasn't been seconded. So if someone could second it, then we can go to the debate about the motion or the amendment, rather.
Could we have a proposal? Oh, thank you, Councillor Grist. We've got a...
Yeah, I'm handing there to second the paper, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. We're now going to debate the motion for alteration by Councillor Howard. Oh, Councillor Ashton.
Thank you. I think it probably falls to me to give a little bit of background on this suggested time change. Fundamentally, every meeting that this council holds, with the sole exception of the one that we're all attending this evening, is during the daytime, during working hours. And I'm well aware from conversations with colleagues over actually a number of years that this causes considerable difficulties for people who wish to serve this council while holding down either full-time employment or managing families and so on. And this is about offering equal opportunity to everyone who might fancy the chance of serving their local community on this council. I also understand that of the range of scrutiny panels that meet from time to time, one of those is always envisaged as an evening meeting. And again, the report from colleagues is that this is something that tends to slip back into a daytime because it is more convenient to the people that have chosen to go on it, irrespective as to whether there are people on those scrutiny panels who went on specifically because it's an evening meeting. And I think the fundamental point is whether we are a council that is prepared to accept that having an evening meeting is absolutely essential in 2022 if we are to attract a broad variety of people to serve on this council and indeed to remain on this council. I am always reminded of the very sad case of former councillor Hopkins, who found that he was unable to continue his duties here beyond the one term because in holding down a full-time job and a family, he wasn't actually able to get to any of the meetings. Now, I hear the argument that comes from time to time that there is remuneration for councillors and it's supposed to offset. I don't think that's actually entirely practical. And when you look around the room this evening, I feel we do need to strike a blow somewhere on this issue. And I am not prepared to stand up here and make this argument as passionately as what I do and say that actually the committee of which I'm privileged to be chair and a part, well, actually, it's quite all right for me to meet at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's a very convenient time for me. It's probably more convenient, genuinely, than meeting at 6 o'clock on a Thursday, which on several occasions is going to clash smack bang with the parish council. But this isn't about doing what is right for me. It's about what's doing right for those people who are not on this committee, those councillors who are not on any committee because they're unable to serve on those committees while holding down a full-time job and looking after families. So for me, it's the debate about the principle as to whether there should be a committee that meets in the evening. We can debate which committee perhaps that should be if we agree with that principle. I don't think practically it makes any material difference which committee does meet in the evening. I'm just suggesting that we make a start with the Planning Policy Committee and crack on and get on with it and try it. And when we look, actually, fair credit to Councillor Howard and the Labour group, your attendance on the Planning Policy Committee has been genuinely superb throughout the year. The same cannot be said for other groups. So I feel it's appropriate to have a go. It's appropriate to try something different. And this is a good place to start. It's certainly it's certainly not for my benefit that I'm suggesting this change. It's because I genuinely feel incredibly passionately about this, and I have ever since I joined this council. I have the privilege of being self-employed. It is probably because I'm a farmer that I'm standing here now. If I wasn't, if I was holding down a 9-to-5 job, then I probably wouldn't be. And this is an opportunity that I want to be available to everyone on this council and everyone who might think about joining this council next year.
Thank you. Councillor Grover.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I think Councillor Ashton has summed it up really well, but I just want to say that I fully support this proposal. Speaking as the chair of the Audit and Governance Committee, I've got no intention of changing the start time or proposing a change to the start time. But I do think it is a real positive to see a committee, and I do sit on the Planning Policy Committee, of an evening time. Like Councillor Ashton and many other councillors in this committee, I also will have occasionally parish council meetings that will clash on that day. And you know, that will be for individual councillors to work that around. But I'm also somebody that works a 9-to-5 job. And actually, it's only the flexibility of my employer that enables me to be a councillor and to sit on committees and to do my job. And I can tell you this, I have applied for jobs before and not taken them because that employer would not provide me the flexibility to act as a councillor. It is not a load of baloney. This is an incredibly serious comment. And one of the opposition members made the point earlier on about the makeup of the executive, which is an incredibly fair point. Completely agree with your comments. And I think Councillor Leyland demonstrated that female members have sat on the executive board at times. But it's also very true for young members. This council does not always do a good job of representing the community, both in terms of women candidates and in terms of young candidates. And it's because it does not allow the opportunity, it doesn't provide the opportunity it stops them and it limits them. So fully support this proposal, Madam Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Brooks.
There we go. Thank you, Madam Chairman. I support the paper and the two speakers that have just previously spoke. When we're trying to recruit people to come on this council, unless you're retired, you might as well not bother because you aren't going to be able to attend. I mean, 6 o'clock, I'd like it later because I finish later than 6 o'clock some nights. So, yeah, I think evening committees should be looked at unless you just want to have retired people making all the decisions. Unfortunately, in Skegness, we have to work. So, unfortunately, I would like to be retired, but I can't afford it. So I quite support this paper and think that committees later is better.
Thank you. Councillor Green.
Thank you. Well, being no surprise, I actually support the change of time meetings. It's been something I've been on about in individuals for a very long time. We need to have evening meetings. This isn't a suggestion to turn all meetings into evening meetings straight away. It's just one committee changed to an evening. It's been mentioned about scrutiny panels. The last couple of scrutiny panels I've served on, I've either had to come off or not bother attending the meetings because they were advertised as evening meetings. Most of the witnesses were interviewed at 4, half 4 in the afternoon. And I was going to say, afternoon and evening are two different things. So sometimes the scrutiny panels are advertised as minded to have evening meetings. The first meeting, it's voted on to make them daytime meetings. So people have to come off them. I am one of those people who work a 9 till 5 job. I can occasionally get time off to come to full council meetings in the afternoon, but that's it. It's not practical or possible for me to have a really flexible boss because of the nature of my job. So really, the only meetings I can attend, the only things I can get involved in at the minute is the full council meetings. Now, I was lucky when I was first on this council, I did have a part-time job working care homes and it was flexible hours, so I could swap shifts, go off early, anytime I like. Now, I can't do that. If I had the job I've got now, when I was first elected, I wouldn't have even considered coming on this council. Some of you may be happy with that, I don't know. But there's no way I've even considered coming on this council because I couldn't attend anything. And just one final, well, a couple of final points. It's been made about we're thinking about the people of this council. Yes, what about the future councillors as well? If you want younger people, people who are employed on this council, they look at the council, well, there's no point because I can't get involved in anything other than full council meetings, so we won't bother. So really, it's a principle. Do we want this council to represent a broad range of where we live, or do we just want to exclude it to the unemployed, self-employed and retired, which is a fairly small structure of the society? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I think I may have chaired the scrutiny panels that Councillor Green refers to there, that attempted to run in the evening. And I think Councillor Ashton alluded to possibly it was the choice of panellists that moved them to the daytime. My experience of I would much prefer things to be in the evening, although I would like more evenings in the week as well, if you could arrange that. But I would prefer things to be in the evenings as well, because I too work, and I too have had to turn down contracts because they clashed with council duties. The real problem that I have witnessed as a chair of scrutinies, which were meant to run in the evening or as close to the evening as possible, was that witnesses were not available, whether that's witnesses from within our council whether that's external witnesses, professionals, etc. Frequently, these people are not available, and I wonder if I welcome the idea of having some evening committees, but I wonder if planning policy is the correct committee to start with, because we do have a whole rich range of people who come to planning policy very necessarily to, you know, inform our decision making, and I do wonder whether or not staff within this council, officers and support staff, have been asked how they feel about additional hours in the evening as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Grist.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I've won a little bet with myself because I thought this might trigger a debate. So I'll probably transfer a £5 note from this pocket to the other side in a second. I think there's been some very passionate contributions in the last few minutes. And I can't support the amendment that Councillor Howard has proposed because I won't repeat what's been said, but I just think we should give this a go. I think a council, for all the reasons it's been articulated, I think a council calendar should be a mixed bag. It should there should be start times across the day and at different days throughout the week. And we are still very daytime centric here. I know we're meeting here this evening. I know now executive board meets in the evening. It wasn't that long ago that executive board met at 10 o'clock in the morning and executive briefings were at 10:30 in the morning, and they tended to last all day. So I think if you look around the country, or even not that far, look around Lincolnshire, and most councils now have a mix of start times. And this is only a really minor change that's been proposed. And I just think we should give it a go. Let's be pragmatic, see how it works. If it doesn't work, we change it. If planning policy doesn't work in the evening, maybe something else will, as Councillor Smith has just said. But let's just try, see if it works. If it doesn't, then we can always review in a year's time. But I do think for the comments, for the remarks that have been made by, particularly by Councillor Grover and Councillor Ashton, Councillor Green, we need to have a programme of meetings that are attractive to all in our community, particularly as we're now into the last 12 months of this election cycle, and people are probably thinking about standing next year who aren't councillors, who aren't currently in this council chamber, and we need to be very mindful of that to make sure we have a fair representation from all our communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leonard.
Thank you. Yeah, given the comments that were made by the leader over here, it's interesting that they, as most regular attenders, don't want the change, and the chairman's happy to go along with day or night. So actually, why alter the status quo? Secondly, as a younger councillor, I came on here. It didn't mean I have to tick every box and be at every meeting. But the one thing I am available for is for the people that elected me in office. They know where to find me pretty much 7 days a week. And that's the most important thing for voters out there, people who want to be in the community, want you to represent their community and speak on their behalf at the appropriate moment. It's not all about attending meetings, I can assure you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason-Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, good manners cost nothing. And I'm surprised at Councillor Ashton not having the good manners to ask his fellow members of planning policy what their opinions were. We're always going on about consultation, and there's been no consultation on this. And whilst starting meetings at 6 o'clock may be a good idea, now isn't the time to do it. Why not do it when you start a new council year, a brand new council, and we can change things, and it's the right time to do it. And quite honestly, I'm absolutely flabbergasted that a chairman plucks something out the air without speaking to other people, and people like Councillor Howard, who do turn up to the meetings regularly. It wouldn't have taken much, would it? And I'm very disappointed in Councillor Ashton's. I would have thought he would have been a better person than that.
Councillor Dennis.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. He spoke to me. about changing the dates because we were really struggling getting people to come for afternoon meetings. I know I struggle. You know, I work during the day. You know, most waking hours is work. And I think what we're looking for here is a little bit of flexibility. I myself believe that planning policy is one of the most important committees on this council. And we were struggling with attendance, Chairman, were we not? We were struggling. And so we can pop some flexibility in there. And if we need to bring people in during the daytime, there's no reason we can't flip a meeting to a daytime and bring somebody in. You know, so, and I've been spoken, I'm sorry that Councillor Howard wasn't informed, but I certainly was fully briefed on it, and I totally agree with it. And flexibility is the name of the game, and that's my view. It's common sense, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of that this evening, and it's getting a bit near beer o'clock, and a bit of a skip on would be handy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Dennis. If I just refer to Mark to talk about the amendment.
Thank you, Chairman. First of all, if I can come to Councillor Howard's query, and I apologise, I didn't know the answer off the top of my head, and John Medler has dug me out of a hole again. Thank you, John. So I can confirm that the legal requirement is that the AGM needs to be held within 21 days of the date of retirement of councillors. Councillors retire 4 days after the election, so we are within the required timescale. The proposals on the paper have been moved and seconded. Councillor Howard's amendment has been moved and seconded, and that amendment, as I understand it, is that the Planning Policy Committee's start time on the schedule at Appendix A reverts to 2 p.m. So we need to take that vote first, and unless Councillor Howard wishes to speak again on his amendment before you do so. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Leonard.
Sorry, can I just raise a point? Can you tell me if the staff have been consulted? Because this would have big ramifications for them. Thank you.
Councillor Ashton.
Yes, just very briefly, this is a point of information. I can confirm to Councillor Leonard, and I think also Councillor Smith raised the same point. Yes, this has been discussed with planning policy officers and planning officers, and they are quite content with us having an evening meeting. The beauty of having officers now attending these things on the screen means that it is less critical for them to be in the building at the same time as we are. So operationally, it makes no difference.
Thank you. So we're going to take a vote in favour of the amendment, please. If you could do a show of hands. Oh, sorry, Councillor Howard.
I believe I have the right to discuss some of the points that have been raised.
Yes, thank you.
And first of all, I want to say that Councillor Ashton, Councillor Grover, Brooks, Green, et al. Raise, points that we have actually argued about from this side of the house many years about, the spread of timing of meetings and what have you. And I agree with almost everything that was said on that particular point. But that is just, that's just a sideshow. If we're going to talk about altering timings of meetings, the proper time for it is at the beginning of a quadrennium, when we know what the individual councillors' difficulties and abilities are. That's the time to do it. If we're talking 3 years into a council, we should be initiating a review into timings if there's an issue, so that we can implement new timings, if necessary, at the beginning of that next quadrennium. Sneaking it in for one committee 3 years in is not a good way of doing things. People have got into the run of how things are working after 3 years of working with them. So it is not the appropriate time to be playing about with one particular committee. I say I agree with the fact that we should spread meetings out, So, but you know, we do that from the outset, not juggle with one particular meeting 3 years in for whatever reason. Councillor Grist, can I have my share of the fiver, please? By the way, I've made a particular note of that point. Councillor Dennis, I'm very pleased to hear that you were consulted.
I were consulted.
Yeah.
Very kind.
That says something about the consultation process when I wasn't. And I believe nor was Councillor Smith. Yes, there should have been consultation. It sounds as if there's been some consultation with officers. Doesn't quite add up to the story that came my way, but I will take the portfolio holder at his word. I still say that what I've moved is pertinent and relevant, and I would like to see us move to the vote and hope that it's successful.
Right, we are voting on the amendment on the planning policy meeting to be reverted back to 2 p.m. Can you show hands if you're in favour, please? Can you show against, please? (27 against, 12 for). That amendment is lost. Abstentions at 2. We're going to go on now to debate the substantive motion put forward by Councillor Leyland and Councillor Grist. Councillor Ashton.
Thank you. I will just use this opportunity to mention one or two bits which the rules of debate, having forgotten to mention it last time on the amendment, but I still think is probably pertinent. First of all, I will extend an apology to you, Councillor Howard, that we didn't have the opportunity to talk about this planning policy. The last meeting that we were due to have was cancelled because there was literally no other item to put on that agenda. And as a course of discussions, this probably gained a momentum of its own. But I did ask that it come to group leaders so that groups had the opportunity to be informed and so to inform who is put forward for these committees, which actually begs the comment made by Councillor Macon-Sanders. Hopefully this will be an opportunity for the independent group to fill its full role on this committee, noting that in the meetings of the last year, on 2 occasions, there was no representation from the independent group at all and no substitutes. And one of the councillors that you have put down for the committee for the year coming only attended 2 meetings in the whole of last year. So hopefully this will be an opportunity for the independent group to improve their attendance. Actually, and I appreciate there's probably never a right time to do this. Is 3 years in the right time? Actually, I say it is. Because if people are thinking of standing for election in a year's time, perhaps putting themselves forward for the council for the first time, then it is material, it is pertinent. Now is the right time, because if we tried doing this on the other side of the election and have a review and kick the can down the road, we'll be halfway through the next term before anything is done about it. And the reason for seizing this opportunity now, and the reason I was passionate to do this now, is actually the experience we've had. As I referenced in my point of information a few moments ago, we now have officers inputting on committees remotely, not having to be here in person for all of that time, which, given the area that we cover across East Lindsey, is an opportunity to be flexible with their employment and the hours that they are working, as well as ourselves. And the other opportunity, of course, which is afforded through the fantastic South and East Lincolnshire Council partnership, is that our partner councils in that also have a programme of meetings, some of which are evening, some of which are daytime. So officers that are reporting into our committees here are used to doing evening meetings now in a way which they were not perhaps as familiar with only a few months ago. So it feels right to do this, and I'm sorry for missing those points out on the debate on the amendment, but I felt in respect to some of them it was right just to mention them now.
Thank you. Councillor Leyland, are you okay to sum up? Sorry, Jill, didn't see you.
Right, well, I think Councillor Ashton was rather naughty there, because certainly one of my group was unable to come to meetings because of COVID restrictions and homeschooling, and with 5 children who all got COVID in succession, and herself, etc. I think you need to be very careful when you're actually criticising people, and so I just will say that. I do think you forget about. It's all very well to say these gentlemen who work. What about the mums who want to be at home cooking the meals for their families at 6 o'clock and doing things like that? We suddenly forget, because there are not many women in here, that some of us women have other roles in life, like looking after grandchildren and doing other things. And 6 o'clock isn't always successful. I don't particularly mind what time it starts myself, but I can see that you please one set of people and displease another set of people. So nothing's ever going to be completely correct, is it? But if so be it. But I do think that if we're going to change times of things, it would be a good idea, because I think Tom Ashton is actually on email. If he was able to send a note round to all the other members of planning policy, and then we wouldn't feel quite so aggrieved.
Councillor Ashton.
Just a very quick point of clarification. I wasn't referring to Councillor Dickinson, whose attendance actually on planning policy has been quite good and always makes a valued contribution.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you. I don't want to sort of keep going over old ground, but I do think that if we're going to expand our meetings into the evenings, the way to do that, and I hate to disagree with my group leader, I think this is as good a time as any to do this. But I think that if we do it, we should have a proper process where individual committees are asked how appropriate for that individual committee evening meetings are, and perhaps how how easy that is for the committee members, and that should be open to all of the committees across the board. This is a fine time to do it, in my opinion. But I think it should. If we shouldn't just pick an arbitrary committee, this should be a process where we look to see both which is most appropriate and which is the easiest to arrange for the members of that committee. And I propose that that's what we do.
Thank you. Councillor Parkin.
I'm sure it won't be a surprise to many of you to say I have to really take issue with Councillor Makinson Saunders' points just now. Women who are at home with children possibly are going to find it fairly straightforward to attend daytime meetings. I know my experience over the last decade with a family who my youngest started off as 2 when I first came on the council and is now 13. I know that the least of my concerns about being able to fulfil my role as both a working mother and now a single working mother with the 4 children isn't at what point of the day I need to make tea. It's a far more complex, nuanced struggle than that, and the broad range of meetings from daytime to evening. And bear in mind what we're talking about here fundamentally is backbench involvement. We're talking about backbenchers being able to be included across the political spectrum. I'm stunned at the length of time it's taken for us to debate it. I welcome the changes. I do accept that it possibly hasn't been handled in the best way possible. I agree with Councillor Smith that the timing is is the right time. But let's not narrow this down and actually insult women by saying that their biggest challenge in terms of serving on the council is who and when is going to make tea. That's just rubbish.
Thank you. Councillor Benjamin.
Yes, I'd like to. I wonder if Councillor Smith, that was an actual motion you proposed then. In which case, I'm happy to second it, and I would like to disagree with Councillor Ashton while agreeing with him. I mean, I'll support his move, but I'd like to disagree with this whole thing about people, retired people being in the minority. We are in the majority in this county, and more retired people here, the better. And we've missed tonight Councillor Jackson. I'm very, very sorry. She's working, isn't she? Yeah. You see? So, I mean, it's heads you win, tails you lose. It's terrible. But we ought to have a debate on it. We ought to go into it thoroughly, quite properly, rather than making a scene about this. And I think we ought to move on because it is Beergate. We ought to get moving.
Councillor Leyland, would you like to sum up, please?
Thank you. I remember attending a council meeting on the eve of my birthday in October the 10th. I'm actually worried about actually getting to that point now, and it's May. But there we go.
Sorry. Councillor Smith. Rob.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It seems in debate there we believe we now have a motion which has been seconded. Could we just confirm that point? And if that is the case, before we can deal with the substantive motion, we'll have to deal with this alternative amendment. Could we just have clarity, please, Councillor Smith, what it is?
Yeah, the motion is that that all of the committees are considered for evening, and that's put to the committees individually, and then those that it's most appropriate for are selected. Thank you.
Can we just be clear, in proposing this, are you including the Planning Policy Committee, or do you wish, at the moment we've got a substantive motion, which is the Planning Policy Committee time changes. Are you sweeping that up in your proposed amendment, or are you considering that separately?
I think that goes in with the proposal that all of the committees are judged as to which ones are most suitable, both in terms of witnesses who may appear and those that are people are available for attendance in the evening. And it should be up to the individual committees if they put themselves forward, and then we select from that group.
Chairman, my understanding of the proposed amendment then is that we do not alter the time for the Planning Policy Committee at this moment in time, and that we consult all committees on the start time of those individual committees.
That can just be an
email. Does anybody wish to speak on this motion, please? Councillor Leyland.
Yes, thank you. I hope no one's watching this on Zoom or whatever. Yeah, well, absolutely. It's been really enlightening tonight. I think it's been a good debate from our younger councillors about the core issues here. And having heard the comment before about why we haven't got women on the executive board, then some incredible comments from females in the council, women in the council, that makes me wonder, anyway, we'll leave that there. No, that's fine. I cook tea most evenings. That's fine. You're just making huge assumptions. Right. In relation to the motion that's just been put forward, I'm afraid I can't support it because the issue that Councillor Ashton raised is specific to the Planning Policy Committee. There's a specific issue about attendance on that, and that's why this has come forward to try to see if that changes the impact of attendance. And on a broader subject, it meets the challenges of actually us being more open to councillors who have a working day that precludes them from attending meetings. fully understand that and support that. To include all the committees in this process is not necessary. We have a proposal tonight, which we should go and vote on. Planning policy is appropriate. Planning committee as a quasi-judicial committee in terms of having members of the public attend probably wouldn't be suitable. In fact, I've had a discussion with the chairman and also licensing in the same vein. So I think we need to take a vote on the planning policy, the paper as it stands, and I can't support the motion. Thank you.
Speaking to the motion of Councillor Aldridge. Councillor Aldridge.
Thank you, Chairman. I've just woken up.
Oh, how can you sleep through that?
If there's no more speakers, we can go to the vote on Councillor Smith's amendment. Can we have a show of hands for all those in favour, please? That's against. Oh, sorry, how many are against? Pay attention. Sorry, Emily. Two him. 30. That's clearly lost. Does anybody wish to debate the substantive motion? Substantive.
Move to the vote, Chairman.
Yes, move to it. Can we have the vote for, please? And against, please. That motion's carried. And we're going back to item 14 on the agenda, which is Council Committees 2022 to 2023. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chairman. The paper's before you, and obviously following the previous debate we've had, there might be some consideration from opposition members of the members of their respective committees. But the paper's before you. It is what it is, and I vote that we support that paper. Chairman, thank you.
Happy to second that. Happy to second.
Yes, thank you. Does anybody wish to speak? Councillor Mason-Saunders.
Well, in view of that, I will need to probably review who represents the independent group, and I will be consulting with Councillor Ashton, who I can send. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Chairman, just for clarity, I think what we're going to be voting on is the paper as written, including all of the names that are currently set out on the appendix. But as the Chief Executive has delegated authority to make appointments in accordance with the political group regulations, if any group leader needs to make changes and they report them to the Chief Executive, those changes can be made after today.
We'll go to the vote. Those in favour, please. That vote's carried. Go to item number 16 on the agenda, and that's over to you, Rob, for appointments to outside bodies.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 93 of your agenda pack, we have a list of outside bodies that we need to appoint to for the future municipal year. What I propose to do is go through them in order as they appear on your sheet. I'll confirm who's currently appointed as member and then seek nominations. Councillor Howard, did you wish to speak?
Councillor Howard.
Thank you. I wish to raise a question as to whether this list is actually complete. We've been talking earlier on about the situation at Theddlethorpe. There is a community partnership being proposed there, and I would have expected to have seen some reference to that in the list of outside bodies that we're appointing to, and I just wondered why that has not come up on the list.
Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chairman. Two things. First of all, this council went through a process to decide who would be on the working group via the Scrutiny Overview Committee. The process that's undergoing at the moment in terms of the working group creation of the community partnership, there is a heads of terms for that, terms and conditions, and a protocol about who will be on the community partnership and who will be eligible to be on that. That is in the remit of Nuclear Waste Services to distribute. That hasn't been shared yet. There will be an appropriate time to have that discussion, but at this point in time, I am the representative on Nuclear Waste Services working group. So it's not an appropriate amendment to this paper, addition rather. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, councillors. Okay, so the first nomination we require is for Age UK Limited. The current appointed member is Councillor William Gray. Do we have any nominations, please? Councillor Leyland.
Can I propose Councillor Gray? Thank you.
Is there a seconder for that, please? Thank you. Any other nominations? Okay, all those in favour, please show. Thank you, that's carried. Next, we have the Alford Grammar School Foundation, one nomination. Currently appointed is Councillor Sarah Devereux. Are there any nominations, please?
Councillor Steve Ayres.
Recommend Sarah Devereux again. She's a very useful member of the committee.
Thank you, Councillor. Could I have a seconder for that, please?
We have a seconder, please. Thank you. Councillor Leyland.
Thank you. I see no more nominations. So all those in favour, can I ask you to please show? It's clearly carried. Thank you. The next one, in terms of a typo there, it's Public Sector Partnership Services Limited. We need two nominations for their board. Currently appointed are Councillor Richard Fry and Councillor David Mangian. Can I have nominations, please? Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Rob. I'd like to propose Councillor Fry and Councillor.
Have a seconder, please. Thank you. Are there any other nominations? In that case, could I have a show of hands in support, please? Thank you. That's clearly carried. Move on to the health scrutiny for Lincolnshire. There's one nomination plus one substitute. These must be serving members of the Overview Committee, and currently appointed are Councillor Sandra Harrison and the substitute is Councillor Sarah Devereux. Any nominations, please? Councillor Leyland.
I'd like to propose Councillor Harrison and.
Thank you. Have a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Grist. Any other nominations? All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's clearly carried. There's a pattern emerging here, isn't there? So, next, we have Flood and Water Management Scrutiny Committee. Again, one nomination plus one substitute. Current nominations are Councillor Fiona Martin and Councillor Sid Dennis as sub. Have nominations, please.
I'll nominate.
Thank you.
And also Councillor Dennis as substitute.
I'll second Councillor Dennis because Councillor Leyland is moving Councillor Dennis.
Thank you. I see no alternative. Yeah, I see no alternative nominations. So all those in favour, please show. Thank you. That's clearly carried. Next one we have is Magnavita Leisure Trust, 2 nominations. Current people serving on that committee are Councillor Sarah Parkin and Councillor Stephen Kirk. Nominations, please, Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Chief Executive. So I'd like to propose Councillor Parkin and Councillor.
Any alternative nominations?
Could I second those nominations?
Thank you, Councillor Grist. All those in favour, please show. Thank you. That is clearly carried. Next, we have the Greater Lincolnshire Local Enterprise Partnership. Leader of the Council, 1 nomination. Councillor Leyland is nominated at the moment.
Sure whether. Well, can I propose Councillor Leyland?
Thank you. Okay, I see no further hands, so all those in favour, please show. Thank you, councillors, that's carried. And then we have the Lincolnshire Police and Crime Panel, 1 nomination, which is currently Councillor Graham Marsh. Nominations, please. Councillor Ware.
Councillor Marsh, thank you.
Second that, Chairman.
Thank you. All those in favour, please show. Thank you very much. That concludes that item, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Aldridge.
Madam Chairman, when I first came on this council many years ago, we used to get reports back. I don't remember having any reports back from these people in the past. Will we get them in the future?
Yeah. Councillor Makins and Saunders.
Councillor Harrison does report back to the Overview Committee after each meeting. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I regularly give Anne Good the minutes of the flood scrutiny meeting and the Witham Third Drainage Board, and I think Anne usually includes them in members' point brief when appropriate. Obviously, during COVID, we haven't met as frequently as usual, but I will be doing that again once we start going back again.
Thank you. Councillor Parkin.
Thank you, Chairman. I can report back that Councillor Kirk and I, pending tonight's vote, have had that very discussion today, that we realise that there are better ways and more things that we can do. And I think it's fair to say that we're both willing to make that commitment tonight, that you'll be hearing much more from us.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton.
If anyone
Councillor Parkin's got light.
If anyone would like me to give a very full and lengthy update on Witham Fourth Drainage, you've only one.
Thank you. Councillor Aldridge.
Chairman, it does actually say general principles. Does it actually says councillors shall report back to the council? On page 95, 1, 2, 3, 4, fourth paragraph.
You just said they did. Yeah. We've completed that item. We're just going to move on to item 17, which is the interim appointment of the monitoring officer. Oh, thank you.
I didn't get an answer to the question.
I'm sorry, that item's closed. We're moving on to next item. Thank you.
Well, any opportunity to talk, you just wrong.
Two opportunities.
Thank you, Councillor Aldridge. If you want to talk to an officer afterwards or to Councillor Leyland or the appropriate person, that's fine. Thank you.
I would expect an answer out of courtesy.
Thank you, Chairman. As members will be aware, I'm standing down from my role as monitoring officer and as assistant director for governance in actually just over 2 weeks' time. The council has a statutory obligation to appoint a monitoring officer, and this report proposes John Medler on an interim basis until the AGM in 2023. I've worked closely with John since I joined the authority in August of last year. And I feel that John is an extremely capable officer, and I do hope members are able to support the proposals in the report. South Holland District Council agreed to appoint John as monitoring officer at their meeting last night. Chairman, the recommendations are on pages 1 and 2 of the report in the supplement, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Leyland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I just support this paper and also recognise and give my great thanks to Mark. You haven't been with us long in this authority, and it's a great shame that we're losing you now. You've been, certainly in respect of my role as leader, you've been very fair, you've been very direct in your advice, and it's been extremely helpful and much appreciated. And we know your difficult circumstances that you have to deal with, and we wish you every luck and every best fortune with what you've got to deal with. And you go with our blessing and our great gratitude for your service to this council. Thank you. Oh, and I support John Medler in the role, interim role, yes.
Councillor Howard.
What he said, basically. It has been only a brief acquaintance, Mark, but thank you for what you've done and the way you've approached the questions I've put your way. Much appreciated. One quick question. I've always thought that the monitoring officer has to have a certain level of legal experience, and my question would be, is that so, and does John have that level of qualification? Otherwise, as long as you can answer that in a positive manner, I'm also happy to support John.
Chairman, I'll answer that question, then I've just got a few words that I'd like to say, if that's okay. Yes, I can confirm that it is not a requirement, not a requirement to hold a legal qualification. It is important that a monitoring officer who isn't legally qualified has access to legal support, because there are times when a legal question does need to be considered. But from my own experience, the last 3 monitoring officers that I was deputy to were all not legally qualified. I'd like to thank you all, thank all members for the round of applause tonight, for the lovely comments of the leader of the council. It's been an honour to play a role in what I think is one of the most significant collaborative partnerships in local government. I'm really sorry that we didn't get to know each other a little bit better. I've only been here since August, and I've already found that East Lindsey is a great authority, great members and great officers, and it truly has been a pleasure to work for you and with you. You welcomed me in August last year, and you made me feel at home right away. I mean, I really had those first few days of nerves at my first couple of meetings, and other than that, I felt at home right away. You've all shown me great compassion and kindness at what has been the darkest time in my life. So please accept my heartfelt thanks to every member and every officer who's reached out to me, cried with me, sent me gifts, offered me support, offered words of hope, and prayed with me for my family. It really has been an honour and a privilege to work with you all. And if you support the paper tonight, I think you'll be appointing a great new monitoring officer, an officer with integrity. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chairman.
Does anybody wish to speak? Then we'll go straight to the vote, please. As stated on page 1 of the paper, for the interim appointment of a monitoring officer and the recommendations within that report. All those in favour, please. That's carried. Thank you. Going to item 18, which is the Model Code of Conduct, to consider the proposed adoption of the Local Government Association Model Code of Conduct. Mark will be speaking on that.
Thank you very much, Chairman. As I'm sure members are aware, Section 27 of the Localism Act 2011 makes the adoption of a code of conduct a legal requirement. Our current code was adopted in 2012 and updated in 2017. My view, having been familiar with a number of codes of conduct, is that East Lindsey is a very good code of conduct. Its existing code of conduct is a robust code, but it's not as comprehensive as the Model Code of Conduct. In 2019, the House of Lords Committee on Standards in Public Life considered standards in public life generally, but part of that included a recommendation that all local authorities up and down the country should adopt a fairly standard code, and that code ought to have certain provisions in it which weren't present in many codes at the present time. Any significant changes to East Lindsey's code are set out in paragraph 2 of the report. The report has already been through the Constitution Working Party, where it was fully supported, the Audit and Governance Committee, where it was fully supported and whose recommendations are now before you, and it has also been supported at the Executive Board. Training has been delivered to members by the Local Government Association back in the winter. I delivered some further training on the 4th of May, and I've no doubt that John will arrange for further training in months to come. Chairman, the recommendations on pages 101 and 102, and I'm happy to take any questions, Chairman.
Any questions? Councillor Grover.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I just want to say I think it's a really great thing to see this come to full council for vote. Having worked through this with audit and governance, I think anything that strengthens the monitoring officer's hand to deal with issues with elected members, I think is a good thing. But I also just want to say, record a vote of thanks to Mark for bringing this to full council and working very hard on it through some very trying times. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Councillor Arnold.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mark. Really welcome to see this as one of the new councillors only in her 3rd year. I really welcome to see something quite robust that's really going to support all councillors going forward. I just have one quirky question, really, and that is on page 113. We talk about that once we've signed, it says the Code of Conduct applies as soon as you sign your declaration of acceptance of office of councillor or attend your first meeting as a co-opted member. So is this something that we're looking to immediately put in, which I feel we should? And if so, how are we going to do that signature piece again?
Chairman, if the council adopt this code of conduct, it will apply immediately. But in order to recognise the fact that members are being asked effectively to sign up to it, there is a recommendation which actually was proposed at a subcommittee meeting in Boston, and which we borrowed here, which is to ask members if they or to give members the opportunity to voluntarily sign up to the code, and for a record of those who have signed up to the code to be published on the website. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ashton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm not sure if I heard Councillor Grover formally moving the paper. If that was the case, I'm very happy to second. I have a degree of familiarity with the LGA Model Code of Conduct, being the chairman of that subcommittee, which the monitoring officer mentioned in another place. I genuinely welcome the work and pay tribute, salute, take my hat off and cheer the LGA for what they have done with this model code. And as I have said previously in its executive board, if only the LGA had done this 10 years ago, it would have saved literally rainforests worth of paper, as every council has been busy doing its own code, debating its own code, round in circles for much of these 10 years. It's a really good code, and I'm delighted to see recommendation 4 on page 102 in our papers here, because I think it reflects that language that the code is written. I treat other councillors and members of the public with respect. I treat local authority employees, etc., etc. It's the I, and I think it's perfectly reasonable and a neat thing to do, to be able to say at the end of that, actually, I agree with it and I sign up to it and I will abide by it. So I'm really, really pleased to see it here, and being an anorak for these sorts of things, probably share the delight of the monitoring officer to see this adopted by this council and hopefully across the partnership.
Thank you. Can I just check with Councillor Grove? Did you propose that we accept this? And did you second, Councillor Ashton? Thank you. Councillor Makinson-Saunders.
I think at the working group we did actually comment that we were sorry not to see some sanctions brought in, because that does actually frighten people slightly more. But you'll all be surprised to know it was the House of Commons who actually threw that out. Obviously, they didn't want to be subject to rules and regulations, or wanted us to be. But we did actually come up with that at our meeting. And I think it's a bit of a shame that they didn't go slightly further with it. But perhaps that might be part 2. But thank you, Mark. We enjoyed those constitutional working groups. It was fun. Thank you.
Councillor Martin.
Well, I would like to second what Councillor Makinson-Saunders has just said. We've had a case in Horncastle with a town councillor who actually, because there are no sanctions attached to any code of conduct, takes absolutely no notice, and the threat of the code of conduct is an empty threat, because he knows, and Mark's smiling because he knows exactly who I'm talking about. I mean, he just ignores it, and it doesn't matter how often the code is brought to his attention, it's just ignored because he knows there are no sanctions available to anybody. And I do think it's short-sighted by the House of Commons to have thrown it out. I signed the petition personally online to say that sanctions ought to be available. And I would hope as a council that we might actually send some representation back on this, because without it, any code of conduct is meaningless, to be quite honest.
Thank you. Mark, did you want to come back on that?
Thank you, Chairman. I don't think there was a monitoring officer in the land that wasn't disappointed when we found out that there weren't going to be additional sanctions. I would say that there are some sanctions which, if used properly, are effective. The most effective being a public report. So I have used it in the past. It won't be my decision from Tuesday onwards, Tuesday of next week. But it is worth remembering that sometimes the most serious sanction is the one that hits the press. And having a full public report in a full council meeting explaining the circumstances of a breach of the code of conduct can be fairly harsh. But I agree. Proper sanctions, such as being able to suspend a member without allowances, would have been welcomed, I'm sure, by all monitoring officers. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Howard.
Most of the previous speakers have covered the bulk of what I've got written down here, but just a couple of points I want to raise. Yes, the bulk of the work has been done by the LGA, but I think it also needs to be brought to members' attention that NALC were also heavily involved in the negotiations. So there is automatically a buy-in route to town and parish councils, and so that this is accepted by all levels of local government, and that is a great thing to behold, where all levels are working together towards something. I do think the issue of there being a lack of teeth here. I looked on page 117, heading 8, complying with the code of conduct. As a councillor at 8.1, I undertake code of conduct training provided by my local authority. And I just wondered whether the words under the threat of pain of death if I don't had been missed out. But I'm guessing at the spacing it probably hasn't. And that's unfortunate, because there's a real point coming from that bit of comedy. And that is that what happens if when that training is put forward, a member doesn't, do they get a month's leeway? Do they get, say, 6 months leeway? Year? Or even 4 years? You know, there's, you know, there is a little bit of lack of force there. And I do feel that we've gone out and brought ourselves a bright, shiny new gun and forgot about the ammo. But I do support what's in front of us.
Are there any further speakers? In which case, we'll go. Oh, sorry.
Briefly to say that the case I was talking about in Horncastle, the gentleman, oh no dear, I've said gentleman, involved actually refused to attend training unless he did the training himself.
Thank you for that. We've had a proposal and a seconder. If we can go to the vote, please. That's carried. So to just skip to 21.
In order to deal with the exempt minutes, or whether we can do it.
So what about question?
Oh, yeah, sorry, let's do first.
Item 19, questions. To answer question pursuant to Council Procedure Rule 11. Oh, these. So we've got the first question is from Councillor George Horton to Councillor Craig Leyland, Leader of the Council. You've had a written response. Do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your reply, Leader. But the Taxpayers Alliance, they got this figure from somewhere in our accounts. So how can you explain that? Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the second question. If you're using the Taxpayers Alliance as your base for information and validity of information, I think that's sort of answered your own question, really. Thank you.
Thank you. We go on to question 2, Councillor Jill Makinson-Sanders to Councillor Graham Marsh, Deputy Leader of the Council and Portfolio Holder for Partnerships. You've had a written response. Do you have a supplementary? Anybody else answer it? Okay.
Well, I could ask for a written response because I'm not asking what the subsidy is. I'm asking what the cost is. And the cost and the subsidy are two entirely different things.
Councillor Leyland.
Quite happy to arrange for a written response, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Question 3, Councillor Andrew Leonard to Councillor Adam Grist, Portfolio Holder for Market Towns and Rural Economy.
Yes, thank you very much. I've read the reply. It's completely deflected the actual question, which didn't surprise me. But I noticed at the bottom, we understand a new consultation is being planned. So the question is, does that accept the fact that the first one was flawed? And secondly, will he come to Louth? I'm quite happy to provide him with a free coffee. And actually explain to all the traders on Mercer Row why this has been put in place without consultation, because there was consultation was supposed to have taken place. The actual survey and it related to domestic use, and it is the actual traders that make up the high street. Without them, you don't have the high street. So if they're struggling, and we openly been discussed in the Louth Leader, that the Mercer Row, that the newsagent, which is a double shop, is down 33% down after the day it was administered, and he's remained so ever since. A business cannot sustain that for long without collapsing. So will he be coming forward to meet the traders and explain why this is such an exemplar of a system? Thank you.
Councillor Grist.
Thank you for the supplementary, Councillor Leonard. This is a county council initiative, So I do need to make that point from at the start. And I think there are certainly lessons to be learned from how this pilot scheme has been implemented. And I've made that point to county council officers and councillors over the last few weeks and months. But I do stress that this is a pilot scheme. This, I think, came out of the last couple of years. This initiative came out of the last couple of years with COVID, with lockdown, and the sort of cafe culture that emerged in Louth and other places. And I think that's one of the good things that came out of the last couple of difficult years. With any scheme, with any change, there are bound to be challenges. There are bound to be needs to perhaps amend and to tweak what's been put in place, and that's the opportunity that a pilot scheme enables. But I will just say this: I think if Councillor Leonard takes the time to read national documents and some initiatives around the country, there is a rebalancing at the moment between the motor vehicle and the pedestrian to make the town centre experience a better one for people and for people movement. There's a very good document I could point him to called Taking Back the High Street. There's another document that came out only very recently called The Pedestrian Pound. And they talk about this this new emphasis on making town centres and high streets more pedestrian friendly. And I think that's the thrust of the County Council initiative. But if things do need to change in Louth and aspects of the scheme aren't working, then they should be changed. And I'll be the first to articulate them. But I think we need to give a pilot scheme a chance to succeed or fail. And we're in very early stages. And I think we should just see how it pans out. With regards to a new consultation, I know that the County Council are committed to make the scheme work, and they want to be a listening authority. That's more for them than for me to answer, because after all, it's them and the Highway Department that are instigating the scheme, and we are consultees. But I will correct him on one thing just very quickly. There was a full consultation last year. There was a good response to that, and overwhelming support for the active travel fund, which is why it was implemented.
Thank you. Did you have a point of order, Councillor Leonard?
I did. Just if it helps, it's actually a technical matter that even our local MP, Victoria Atkins, can't get a response from Richard Davies at the County Council on the same subject. So I think that says it all, really. Thank you.
We go on to item 4, which is Councillor Jill Makeson-Sanders to Councillor Martin Foster, portfolio holder for operational services. You've had a written response. Do you have a supplementary?
Well, I have to say Martin Foster is probably the most helpful executive board member of the lot. And he very kindly there's praise for you. Yes. Well, he used to be an independent, so that's why he's so good. Oh. I'm a bit bemused by the remark. Sorry, I'm chewing something to stop me coughing. Local residents can't have met their policy threshold. Perhaps he'd like to find out what their policy threshold is, because nobody seems to know. My residents did this 6 years ago, and as Councillor Foster knows, I forwarded this reply to people. They're so frustrated. Really, I don't. I'm just going to lean on him and say, please, can you do more? It's awful. We did, and he is going to come back to me and tell me how much this council spent on the consultant's report, which we sat in a room with Rob Barlow and discussed, and hopefully that was going to help sort out some of our street problems in that. I don't know if you can dust that down, Councillor Foster, and send me a copy, because I never did see a copy, and I would like to have seen it. So the ball's in your court, but thank you very much, because you are very, very helpful.
Councillor Foster.
Thank you for those remarks, and thank you for your question. Yes, we did meet in 2019, and a lot of water has passed under the bridge since then. Our senior officers did set this off and kick it off, and we did meet and discuss it and go through the actual first iteratives of the report that was being put together from the consultancy company. It was then taken out of our hands, as you know, by Lincolnshire County Council. Their officers thought it was more under their remit because it involved highways, enforcement by highways, and the road markings and signage by highways. So it did fit with their remit better. Obviously, we've struggled since then. I have been given the cost of that initial consultancy, which was suspended when it was passed over to LCC. That document was sent to LCC along with all the residents' documents, as you're aware, and you'd supplied those to Andy Fisher, and those did get sent to Mick Phoenix at LCC. I can give you that cost if you want by email, or I can give it now if you would wish. Thank you. Well, just to let you know that the cost of the report was £9,560, and that was then, as I said, at that point, as they were going out to consultation with the residents, was passed over to LCC, who were then going to take up that particular investigation with the residents. But at that point, COVID took over and there's been nothing since. But our senior officers have assured me that they will be working on this to make sure that LCC pick this up and carry on with the work that was started. Thank you.
Thank you. Got question 5 is Councillor Andrew Leonard to Councillor Richard Fry, portfolio holder for finance. We've had a written response. Do you have a supplementary?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Councillor Fry. Yes, you always give me a straightforward answer, and that's what I like. But the point is, what I'd say is, originally we never budgeted to purchase an extra building for storage. And I understand you now say, well, they had to purchase, but no previous miscellaneous, and so on. But can you say that that isn't going to happen again? What else hasn't been done? And how can you still stick to the budget if the budget was only for a building of a building, not extra buildings? Thank you.
Councillor Fry.
Thank you very much. Well, I think it's pretty obvious, really. We've identified a contingency and we're inside that contingency at this point in time. And if anything changes, I'll advise you accordingly.
Thank you. Question 6, Councillor Andrew Leonard to Councillor Tom Ashton, portfolio holder for planning.
Thank you. Yes, I do. Thank you. The opening response says, thank you. However, I've not seen the article myself and I'm able to comment accurately. But yet, on the next paragraph, it says, I am, however, aware that this matter has been raised at group leaders. So you are aware of the matters, and therefore, perhaps you'd like to give an opinion on what your question originally asked. Because if it made Private Eye magazine, which is top end national press, I don't think it was some little minor misdemeanour. Thank you.
Councillor Ashton.
I'd simply say that if you've got a subscription to the Private Eye, try switching to the Spectator. It's far more illuminating. On the substantive matter, the answer that I've already given you makes it very clear that there is absolutely no breach of legislation or regulation by the council in respect of Thomas Scully House. It has no protection under legislation. It's not a listed building. It hasn't got any heritage designations or listings of any kind, locally or nationally. Given, I appreciate there are always going to be some members that would prefer us not to have built the Horncastle Hub and not be moving there. Since we have and we are, the setting of Tom Scully House is certainly not exactly enhanced by the building that we put there. That being the case, it will be a decision, a separate matter for the council, what happened to that building. Alternatively, I would draw passionate defenders of old buildings attention to the existence of the other buildings on site, some of which we are in the process of preserving. And there are, as I say, other buildings with a far better setting on that site that I know heritage groups are interested in separately.
Thank you. Right, we're going on to, well, can I just ask everybody on item 21, which is draft minutes, the Audit and Governance Committee, are there any questions that will affect the exempt status of that item?
Just to assist the chairman on that, does any member wish to speak on the exempt minutes which are for noting? If not, there's no need for us to go into exempt session just yet.
Councillor Hall.
I do wish to ask a question on the exempt.
Right. We need to vote to go into exempt session. Oh, sorry. Can we just go straight to the date of the next meeting? Then we can do the two exempt items together, if that's okay with everybody.
Can I just be excused, please?
Thank you.
Yeah, excitement's got the better of me.
Right, so we're going to vote now to go into exempt session. All those in favour, please. It's carried, isn't it? Oh, sorry. Item 1 is apologies for absences, which I think are already noted. Item 2 is disclosure of interests, if any. Thank you.
Councillor Arnold. What about colleagues that have left already? Their absences being noted.
Yeah. Yeah, they've been noted. Thank you, Councillor Arnold. We're going to item 3, which is appointment of chairs and vice chairs. And we've got the Audit and Governance Committee. Is that separate? So people who stand on the Audit and Governance Committee, could you please stand? And could we have from the people on the committee a nomination for the chair, please, and vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Andrews.
Thank you. And have we got seconders for those? Seconding both? Grover and Councillor Andrews. We've got a seconder for Councillor Andrews.
No, the person that was seconded it isn't here.
All those in favour? Yeah, thank you.
You can't vote, you haven't done the training, have you?
All right. I thought this was the vice chair. That's the chair. And the vice chair, please. Oh. Thank you. Thank you. You may sit down. Oh, all those in favour, sorry, vote. Can you put your hands up? On the committee, can you vote, please? Put your hand up. That's carried. Thank you. We've got the General Licensing Committee, Licensing Act 2003 Committee. If you could stand, please. And can we have a nomination for chair, please? So, thank you. And the vice chair. Oh, sorry, all those in favour? That's carried, thank you. Vice chair, please. Who's nominating? Stan, okay. And are you seconding, Councillor Andrews? And all those in favour, please. Thank you.
David Andrews can't nominate, so he's got pecuniary.
And can we have the people for the overview committee, please? And can we have a chair, please?
I'd like to nominate our favourite party annual councillor, Mrs. Martin.
And I'll second that.
Seconded by Jill. All those in favour? Thank you, that's carried. Vice chair, please.
Can I nominate Councillor Moffat?
And I'll second that.
Thank you. All those in favour? That's carried, thank you. Planning committee. Oh, I'm on this. Oh, I was on overview. Yeah.
That should be Councillor Earl doing this.
Yeah.
Thank you. Can we have chair for planning? Thank you. Seconder? Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. Vice chair, please. Thank you. Seconder, please. So Dennis, thank you. And all those in favour? Thank you. Nearly. Just one more to go. Planning Policy Committee, please. And we just need the vice chair for this, please. Thank you. No. Who's second? Danny's.